Welcome back everyone, this is going to be my new Loki video for how it just helped set up the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange 2, and Marvel's What If series, which is basically like a giant multiverse series. Way crazier than what's happening on Loki. If you thought that it couldn't get crazier, it can definitely get crazier. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I'll be doing all the episode videos for What If, obviously a whole bunch of Spider-Man videos, and Doctor Strange 2. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just post all your predictions in the comments below. Careful for spoilers for everything that's happened on Loki so far, too, if you have not seen episodes 1 and 2 yet. But Kevin Feige and the Loki producers revealed that the Loki series, more than any other series so far, will have big ripple effects on all the future Marvel Phase 4 movies and series because of what they're doing, messing with the timeline, the sacred timeline as the timekeepers call it. So at the end of Loki episode 2, Sylvie Laufeydottir sets off all these reset devices, the time reset devices, as part of a larger time bomb device, sending each of them to very specific points in history across the MCU, just calculated for where they could cause the most damage and create the biggest amount of branch timelines. Renslayer's screen shows a bunch of them go by, but it's only a small fraction. Like, if you look at the warehouse here, and this isn't even all of them in this big shot here, there's only 43 distinct charges in this scene here, and you have to imagine this entire warehouse. They said this is a giant warehouse. All the warehouse is full, top to bottom with shelves, with a bunch of charges. So theoretically, there are hundreds of different branch timelines now that she just helped create. But here's the thing, you probably noticed, for the most part, she sent all of them to the distant past in the MCU, in the recent present. She didn't really send many of them to the future. There's one of them that went to the future on Vormir. I'll explain that later in the video. It's not quite as relevant for the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. And she wasn't literally creating the multiverse, so to speak. Like, there was a multiverse before the events of the Loki series. But what she did was important for expanding the Marvel multiverse in a really calculated way, leading into the plot of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange 2, and Marvel's What If series. Each of the charges were meant to create a new Nexus event, so normally the time reset devices erase changes to the timeline before they get to a certain point and become permanent, but she just rewired them so that they did the reverse. They had that big speech at the beginning of the episode where Miss Minutes is grilling Loki, giving him the test like what happens when Nexus events are created. That's why they say that the TVA only has a certain amount of time to reset things before these alternate timelines become permanent and start to function like fully alternate realities, alternate universes. Then the TVA would no longer be able to reset things. Every single TVA grunt that they have are running out to all these different locations to try and fix them before they become permanent. But the idea is there's way too many of them, so some of them will definitely become permanent. It is all part of Sylvie's plan to destroy the Timekeeper's ability to police the timeline, the sacred timeline, so to speak, so that they no longer have the ability to determine what is sacred and what is not sacred. The idea being that she came from one of these other branch timelines that they deemed too dangerous or not good enough to be part of their sacred timeline, so they erased it, but she survived somehow. Then started her quest to burn it all to the ground, so to speak. I think that's why they also had that funny line of dialogue from Loki, which seems more like him doing a Babe Ruth call-out at the beginning of episode 1. I'm gonna burn this place to the ground. If you think about Sylvie being the alternate Loki, technically he's not wrong when he says that. He is going to burn this place to the ground. It just might not be him specifically. But the other reason why Sylvie did all this with the bombs, as Kevin Feige said, was to create the story ripples that he talked about affecting future Marvel movies and series. For instance, Sylvie didn't create the multiverse from the ground up. Like, there was a multiverse before this, as the Ancient One said in the Doctor Strange movie. It's just that the multiverse before this moment was limited to the subset of alternate realities that the Timekeepers had wound up in their sacred timeline and deemed to be not dangerous. The reason why you can have one sacred timeline for the entire multiverse is because they're being kind of technical with the way they describe the sacred timeline. Think about the sacred timeline as this giant river. Like, this might be a representation of the sacred timeline in four-dimensional space. Now imagine the current version of the multiverse, all these alternate universes are rocks inside this river of time, so to speak. None of the rocks are big enough to alter the greater flow of this giant river of time. And anytime somebody steals an Infinity Stone, like Loki steals the Tesseract, the Space Stone, or the Avengers steal the Infinity Stones during Endgame, and they do create branch timelines, things happen to create Nexus events in the flow of the river, so to speak, the sacred timeline is diverted just a little bit, that's when the TVA would get involved to erase those changes. The reason why they didn't arrest the Avengers is because Captain America kind of did their work for them. He took all the stones back, clipping the branches, so to speak, as he says. And then, even though he kind of took a left turn and went to live with Peggy Carter in 1942, And nothing he did before he came back to present day created a Nexus event, and that's why the TVA didn't move in to stop him or arrest Peggy Carter. So getting to the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange 2, and the Marvel What If series, the way Sylvie helped set up the multiverse crossovers like Spider-Man No Way Home Spider-Verse elements with all these different versions of characters, because we have Dr. Octopus coming from the events of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2, and Alfred Molina confirmed he would be the same version of Dr. Octopus, and not only that, his story in the new movie would begin right after he goes into the river at the end of Spider-Man 2, and that was 20 plus years ago almost. Like into the river, then 5 seconds later, it's the beginning of Spider-Man No Way Home. The only way you can do that is with multiverse travel and a little time travel. And there have been some reports that the No Way Home title is actually meant to be a reference to a couple ideas, one of them being the villains from these alternate universes like Jamie Foxx's Electro from the Amazing Spider-Man films have no way home, and the multiverse is slowly collapsing in on itself. That gets into more of Miss Minutes' speech about madness, Doctor Strange 2 plot, the total collapse of all reality. But before the events of Marvel Phase 4, think about it this way. Kevin Feige had always made it seem like he didn't have any interest in doing big Sony crossovers, like he didn't want Venom inside the MCU. He was content to let Sony make all the movies they wanted to, just as long as they kept them in an alternate universe. Like, we don't want to have to deal with all the stuff that you're doing, because we don't have complete quality control over what you're doing. But then they signed that new Spider-Man sharing deal for the new movies, and suddenly he kind of changed his tune, saying that Tom Holland's Spider-Man would not only be traveling the multiverse, he'd also be traveling between cinematic universes. So we all just expected them to say that all the different Spider-Man franchises, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, Andrew Garfield, the Venom movies, all just happening in alternate universes. Very simple way of tying everything together. It's just that now in the Loki series, they're laying the track work for why that is. So, for example, several of the time bombs that Sylvie sends to various points in Earth's history, all of them were sent to points in history long before present day. The reason why that's important is because if you create branch timelines in the distant past, they have a better chance of creating present-day versions of the characters that are vastly different. Like, for example, one of these is happening in 1947 in New York City on Earth. Change something in the 1940s back then, you theoretically have the chance of creating a new alternate reality that then leads to a very different-looking version of Spider-Man that just happens to look like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. But you get the idea. On one level, she's essentially creating universes of the multiverse where the other Sony Spider-Man movies exist now. But some of the other places she sent these bombs to are really big Easter eggs too, and there are other places inside the universe, like Ego the Living Planet, Sakaar, Vormir, Asgard, the Kree homeworld. That's more of a lead-in for the Marvel What If series, Doctor Strange 2, and then theoretically other Marvel Phase 4 movies down the road. For example, there's actually multiple What If episodes with different iterations of the Iron Man character. He died during Avengers Endgame, and Robert Downey Jr., the Russos, Kevin Feige said they didn't want to trample on that, but during the What If series, we're going to see alternate reality versions of the character in multiple alternate realities where things played out very differently, and he's still alive in present day. For instance, one of the episodes where Kilmonger is featured, Kilmonger, instead of trying to steal the throne of Wakanda, is supposed to get his weapons from Iron Man, like he teams up with Iron Man instead of trying to do the vibranium plot. Tony Stark, I'm here to bargain. There's also supposed to be a completely separate episode where another different universe version of Iron Man gets sent to Sakaar instead of Thor. That's where this trash-looking Hulkbuster comes from. He makes a Hulkbuster to fight in the Contest of Champions that's made of trash, so we'll just call it the Trash Buster for now. But then connecting things in a larger sense to Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness, in that Episode 1 history video for the TVA, Miss Minute said that if too many branch timelines are created, it would theoretically become madness. Another multiverse war that was more literally a Doctor Strange 2 teaser, but also kind of a hat tip for Avengers Secret Wars down the road. But imagine Doctor Strange sitting here watching all the time bombs going off at the end of Loki Episode 2 from the Sanctum, just slowly crapping his pants, like, what is going on over there? But Miss Minutes winds up being correct, chaos erupts, and creates the events wherein the different Spider-Man characters from different universes all wind up on the main MCU Earth for the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. Then it gets even worse, and you start to see the total collapse of all reality towards the events of Doctor Strange 2. And that's where the larger villain of Doctor Strange 2 gets involved, which theoretically right now has been reported as Shuma-Gorath. He's a character that predates the creation of the multiverse. He was born in the void of nothingness that existed before the multiverse. So when they talk about the collapse of all reality, it's sort of like everything returning to the chaos of nothingness that came before that. Obviously, when you think of chaos, you think of Wanda's chaos magic during the WandaVision series. So don't worry, I'll do more videos about Doctor Strange 2 and all the stuff that's going on during that when we get more footage. But the writer of the Loki series also wrote the story of Doctor Strange too, so you can see now how it's connected in this really large sense and why all these time bombs were so important for them expanding the multiverse in a really quote-unquote chaotic way. One of the reasons, though, why I think that the Vormir Easter egg is from the year 2300 is just that there's no confusion about them bringing back a version of Black Widow. Like, no, this is happening hundreds of years in the future, so she's still dead. They didn't want fans thinking like, oh, maybe Black Widow's coming back to life because of this change. But let me know in the comments, though, do you think that Sylvie's time bombs are the reason why the multiverse gets thrown into chaos, setting up Doctor Strange 2, and how do you think she sets up Spider-Man No Way Home in the Spider-Verse plot with the big crossovers? Speaking of other connections too, the showrunner on Loki actually came from Rick and Morty, and Rick and Morty Season 5 Episode 1 is releasing tonight. I will be doing weekly videos for that, so now we'll have Loki episodes and Rick and Morty episodes every week. So make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss any of those episodes when I post them. If you still have big questions, just post them all in the comments below and I'll add them to my future videos. And I'll just keep the giveaway open through all my Marvel videos this week. Everyone, click here for my full Loki Episode 2 video, and click here for my Loki Episode 3 trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.